What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. My name's Micah, and today we're going to be changing the oil on our Honda Navi. This is a very easy process. I'm going to walk you through what type of oil to use, when you should change your oil, and other things to check as you're doing this. So without further ado, let's rip into it. Now first, we're going to let our bike run for 3 to 5 minutes to warm up that oil. So now we're gonna drain the oil out of our motorcycle. So if you're on the right side of your Navi, you're gonna see this cyclone looking thing, and just to the left of that is gonna be your oil filler cap. That's also your dipstick. Just beneath that, we are gonna find our oil drain plug down here. So that's gonna be a 12 millimeter. We're just gonna slide an oil pan under here and remove that. I like to use a rubber glove for this. It keeps your hand clean. Now there is a crush washer on that drain bolt. Don't drop that in your oil. Now that all of our engine oil is drained, we're gonna reinstall our drain plug. You will wanna check that crush washer and make sure that's in good condition and not jeopardized in any way. Ours is not, so we'll be reinstalling that. Don't get this drain bolt crazy tight if you don't have a torque wrench. Just aim for roughly 15 to 20 foot-pounds of torque. I think that's it. So now on the left side of our bike, we're gonna clean the oil screen. So our bike doesn't have a traditional oil filter. It uses an oil screen, and so every time you change the engine oil, you'll wanna pull that screen out, check it, clean it, throw it back in. So your center stand will need to be out to access this, but just behind the center stand here, you're gonna find one big bolt. Now that bolt or cover is gonna be a 17 millimeter, so I'm gonna slide our oil pan underneath that. We'll take out that bolt and inspect our oil screen. Now this is gonna have a spring behind it, so there's a little pressure that this has. We're not gonna wanna let that spring fall in. So as you release that cover, kind of put your hand under there and pull that screen and that spring right on out. So there is the spring, but our oil screen is still in there. So I'm gonna grab that with a needle nose and pull it out. And there we are. Now your screen, you'll wanna inspect here very carefully. Make sure that's not jeopardized, that it's in good condition. Ours certainly is. Ours doesn't even look like it really needs to be cleaned, but we'll spray it out. So for cleaning these, I always like to spray them with a brake cleaner, a carburetor cleaner, maybe even just WD-40. So we'll get this all cleaned up. One other thing to check at this point is gonna be that rubber ring that is around the cap. Make sure there's no rips or tears in that it can still make a good seal. Ours looks perfect. Now before we put our screen, spring, and cap back on, I'm gonna jump in there with a rag and just kind of clean up that surface here. We wanna make sure that's nice and clean so we don't get any leaks. So now I'll take our screen, I will put that back in our spring. There's only one way it can go, the other end is too small. And then I'll put that spring back in our cap here, and I'll just kind of hold that up. It'll take a little bit of pressure to get that started. I'll put my socket on it, make it a little bit easier. And for the torque spec, again, I'd aim for that 15 to 20 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, that feels perfect right there. So now we're gonna put some fresh oil in our motorcycle. So in the owner's manual, Honda says that this bike is gonna take 0.75 quarts if you just drain the engine oil. Now it says if you remove the oil screen, the bike is gonna take 0.85 quarts. Now just to make sure that we don't overfill our motorcycle, we're only gonna put in about 0.7 quarts, then we'll check the level and we'll add more if we need to. As far as the oil type, Honda says that this bike needs 10W30 motorcycle engine oil. It needs to have an API rating of SJ or higher, and Honda doesn't want you to use any resource conserving or energy conserving oil. Now you also have the freedom to use standard oil, semi-synthetic, or full synthetic. So whatever suits your fancy, we're just using Lucas semi-synthetic 1030 motorcycle oil. Oh, and that's about 0.7 quarts. So we're gonna check our level. Now at this point, something else you'll wanna check is on your dipstick, your oil filler cap. You're gonna wanna look at that rubber ring that's around there. Again, we'll inspect that, make sure there's no rips, tears, cracks, that can make a good seal. And I'm gonna get in here with a rag and clean up our area around that filler cap. Gosh, it is windy as heck today. Why wouldn't it be every time we try and film? All right, so to check this oil level, you're gonna wanna have your bike on the center stand or just held up straight. We're gonna put the dipstick in there, but we will not screw it in. We're just gonna let it rest on top of those threads. And we're sitting at about 3/4 of the way up on that dipstick, so we do need to add just a little bit more. Let's see where that puts us here. That looks like the one, perfectly filled up to the brim. That is awesome. So, and it looks like all said and done, we did add about that 0.8 quarts. So, and that should be everything. We checked our crush washer, all of our rubber rings. Our bike is filled to the proper level with fresh oil, and our oil screen is all clean, ready to rock. So altogether, all said and done, you know, our oil change only cost us $10. We only needed 1 quart of oil. So in the description of the video, I'll put a link to the exact oil that we used. I'll also put a link to the Honda GN4 oil, and then I'll also put a link to these tune-up kits for this bike that include your quart of oil, a new crush washer, a new air filter, and a spark plug for your bike. So that's kind of a nice thing to do every year or every other year. This was just our very first oil change on this bike, so it has 600 miles now. So we aren't quite in need of a tune-up or other new parts just yet. But yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys today. So like the video if this helped you out, subscribe if you guys want to see more, and until next time, have a wonderful night, guys.